Hello there everybody and welcome to this channel. My name is Savvy from SAanatomy.com, and for today's video we're going to be working on a hippo. In this video we're going to have the similar workflow that we had in the honey badger video, where we start off with a meta ball and then convert everything into a mesh and then start sculpting. I did add in some extra features to this model, such as the feet. I wanted this model to contain some bones showcasing some of the skeleton. We are going to cover up the feet with a separate mesh though at a later stage. That will be for the hooves. You don't necessarily have to do what I did here with the feet. You could just continue on sculpting like we have been in previous videos, where we sculpt in the skeletal details and all that, where we merge it in with some muscles and whatnot. But I wanted some pieces to be separate models or separate mesh. This was just me experimenting a little bit and having fun with the model. Now, I sculpted the hippo a lot faster compared to other animals that I've worked on, and this is mainly because I had really good reference images. Now, when you're gathering reference images, I suggest spending about 30 minutes, close to an hour, just gathering as much reference images as you possibly can. The reason why you also spend a really long time just gathering these images is because you want to have as much information as possible that will help you while sculpting or modeling or doing whatever you're doing. I also do suggest going onto 3D websites such as Sketchfab and searching up the animal you are currently working with. It's really great to be able to rotate around the subject and be able to see what other people's work looks like. It will give you some ideas. It will probably help you in the research phase, or maybe even while sculpting, you'll be able to have some ideas, a few ideas, and probably think, okay, maybe I should do it like this person, how they did it. I really like the way they modeled this piece or whatever. So that's just another great idea. Now, in the honey badger video, I did speak a little bit about brushes and how you can use different ones for different muscle groups. And over here for the hippo, you can see that I outlined some parts and then I used the inflate brush to puff them up a little bit right in the middle, such as the sternocephalic muscle or the thyrohyoid muscle. Once you understand what these brushes that you're using can do, you'll be able to sculpt over certain muscle groups with ease and achieve very interesting results in your sculpt and experiment a lot easier. For the most part, I use the clay thumb and the layers brush. It's a lot easier to use these brushes to outline muscle groups such as the trapezius dorsi or the latissimus dorsi. For the abdominal obliques, I use the same brush that I usually use, which is the clay strips brush. Sometimes you could also use the clay brush, but usually the clay brush, the standard clay brush in Blender, just smooths out the area as well as you're sculpting. It doesn't really rough out things just like the clay brush. It does rough it out a little bit, but it doesn't do it to the extent of the clay strips brush. You'll also notice that in ZBrush, for example, I will use the clay brush and then change the alpha to a circular alpha and then sculpt over certain muscle groups as well. It's a lot easier that way. You could also do a similar thing in Blender. You could also create your own brushes for specific textures. Custom brushes are really fun to work with, but in this channel we don't really do custom brushes, so we'll just teach everything with the standard Blender brush. Everything that you see us using here, you already have it once you download Blender. It's the default brushes. So you might be wondering how I'm going to overlap certain muscles or certain extensors that pass over the bone detail that I just have over here. Usually, again, you just use the clay strips brush. The clay strips is really just great for an all-purpose kind of brush. You could use it for all kinds of things. So usually when you want to overlap things, you just grab the clay strips brush, and then you could have the strength at any level, but usually about 0.5 going upwards or 0.2 going upwards should be great. It should work. You could also probably use the layers brush, but the clay strips is really great because the layers brush also, if you use the layers brush, you could experiment a little bit. You'll see that it kind of adds in a second height to itself. So if you layer over the mesh and then you draw again, it kind of just overlaps itself. The clay strips brush does a better job of overlapping certain details. Also, if you want to puff up without losing enough information over details, you want to use the standard brush or the inflate brush. This one it doesn't really remove the details that was under it. It just kind of like puffs up the area around it, so it adds on instead of multiplying or replacing certain details. It adds on to the detail that already exists. Another way of you doing this is going to a lower subdivision and then working on your primary forms and puffing up the shape there, and then going back into your tertiary or your secondary forms and then working on those details again. Like I said before, I wanted to showcase some bone for the sculpt. You don't necessarily have to do this again. It's just some details that I really wanted to work on. I was experimenting a little bit so I was working on the hippo. There was some things that I wanted to add on that I knew that I couldn't add in a different animal, mainly just because of time. For this one, I knew that I had a few minutes or a few hours to spare, so I just decided to add in some things that I really wanted to see. Also, it's really great to focus on these certain things as well, to just learn about them, because you might use them in the future if you want to focus on an animation of an animal, and then you also want to showcase how the bones move and everything. Obviously, you need some practice, so it's best to just start now rather than later. Here's a little interesting thing. So if you found it easy to sculpt, or if you actually did sculpt the pig, and you actually think that you did a good job, then you would find it really easy to sculpt the hippo. Same goes for if you sculpted the lion, then obviously you'd find a cat really easy, or other animals such as dogs. If you sculpted a horse before, then you would find a giraffe easy. So most animals are really similar in shape and size and all that. So if you really found something really tough, if you were working on the T-Rex, for example, and you found that really hard, then if you just work on the T-Rex a little more, once you find the T-Rex really easy, then all other dinosaurs, you will find it kind of easy. Not entirely, it's not always, it's just once you understand one animal's anatomy, you kind of understand the next one. You'll see that, oh, hey, the trapezius looks this way. It also looks similar to how it looks in a boar or a lion or something like that. Sort of like if you're used to sculpting humans, if you're really used to sculpting human echoes, then all humanoid types should be easy for you, because they're just like a step down or a step up from a human, so they're deriving from human anatomy kind of thing. So if you're used to sculpting a human, then next time when you sculpt an alien that just so happens to be bipedal, they act like humans, and you'll find it really easy. So for the last part, you'll almost notice that I lost some of the details on the hippo over here. That's because I actually deleted one of the subdivision levels. Sometimes it's just really good to restart. And the reason why I did this was because Blender kept crashing because of one of the subdivision levels. I believe there was some corrupted data somewhere around. So I spent about an hour trying to figure out what was going on. Eventually, I came up with a solution. I exported a few subdivision levels. So I applied the multi-resolution modifier on certain levels, and then I exported them. And then I just kept on re-importing whichever one I felt was best to start working on. And then I added in a new multi-resolution modifier and then worked on it again. The problem that I was facing was, if you remember in the honey badger video, I did mention that the multi-resolution modifier does not want you to edit the mesh in ways like deleting or extruding or things like that. So I accidentally deleted a few vertices and I didn't realize, and then Blender just freaked out. So I spent about an hour just trying to solve this problem and whatever. The best way to just solve it, if Blender is just not crashing, one, obviously just have backups. Just save a couple times and then make a backup, and also have backups of your models. Two is that if Blender isn't crashing, just apply the multi-resolution modifier quickly at a certain subdivision level, export it, and then make sure that you have the low resolution model. and then you can import the high definition or the mid definition and pick whichever one you want to work on, and then add in another multi-resolution modifier. There is other ways of fixing this issue or whatever, but I just went with the quickest one, and I wasn't that upset about restarting, or well, I didn't go that far back. Fortunately, I just had to go back into my secondary forms. I lost all the tertiary details and all that tertiary forms, but it's totally fine. Sometimes it is good to restart. Sometimes it is by choice, mainly because you just need to relearn certain things. For the face, I didn't really lose much because I didn't focus on the face. I usually do that last or right at the beginning. So fortunately, I didn't lose that much details on the face. I think I would have been more upset if I lost that much detail on the head or the face. I had the feet and the hooves as separate objects. This is mainly because I wanted to make sure that everything was optimized. Also, I didn't want to deform the main body that much. It was mainly because I added in bones, such as the phalanges and whatnot. So I added in a different mesh. This also gave me enough freedom to experiment and play around a little bit. You'll see the change of the forms for the hooves a little bit. It starts off covering the entire bones, and then it just ends up just covering right at the end, and that's it. Now, if you like this video, make sure to like and subscribe. And keep your eyes peeled for the next video that we'll be working on very soon. And I hope to see you in the next one.